Whoops, tears running down our face. And that's how hard the work has been.
I haven't slept in months.
They made me walk down a trail just to sit here. 3-mile hike.
That's like the metaphor for the work, actually. Like, it'll be great, really. You have to hike there.
Go down that.
My name is Bee Vang Moa, and I am the director of the Hmong Language Program at the University of Minnesota.
Hi everyone, I'm Mei Lee Shang, Mai Li Seng Hyung, and I am currently an assistant principal at an elementary school in St. Paul Public School.
Hi, my name is Peng, and I am a Hmong language teacher at Park Center High School.
I'm Dr. Jenna Cushing-Lubner, and I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I'm an assistant professor there in World and Heritage Language Education, ESL and Bilingual Education.
You know, we had just started our journey and talking to different teachers across the United States. I've been hearing, a lot of different needs from teachers. And one of the biggest need is that we don't have Hmong language standards. And different school districts that have resources have developed them within their school district with the teachers, etc. But it is intellectual property, and because of that, smaller school districts or newer school districts, I'm like, I'm the only one. What can I do? How can I create Hmong language standards by myself? We need some standards to help guide us, to be the roadmap, to help us to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing, because we don't want to miss something that's so important in teaching what we need to do. And so that's when I said, Jenna, could we do something like this? Mm-hmm. And so this is where your expertise comes in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you just talked about it as guidance. I think, in education, especially K-12, we have language as standards a lot. But the way that I've really seen you all take this work over the last year has really been in kind of like a spirit of guidance.
My name is Ya Bocha. I am a language teacher at Luther Burbank High School, and it's in Sacramento, California. In this project, we created standards for the teaching of Hmong language, culture, and literacy. And there are 3 of us facilitators, and I'm one of the facilitators. Now, new generations have come of age. Those that were born here, the second generation among that are here in America, they don't have the identity, they don't have the language, they don't have the history, the cultural history, because they don't have pride in it, they don't understand it, they don't have what it takes to demonstrate that they are Hmong people.
I came to the U.S. At about 3 or 4 years old and started kindergarten. And so for a number of years growing up in Wisconsin, our family was the only Hmong family, so I spoke a lot more English than I did Hmong. So very much so, like the students that I'm teaching today at the university, I lost a lot of my heritage because I lost so much of my language. And with Hmong being an oral tradition, oral language, once you lose the language, you basically have lost a core foundation, a core part of yourself.
My story is similar to Bee's too, in that when we were younger, through our schooling and stuff, it was just English. So then I personally pushed myself away from it as well, and then came back into connecting with it during college and then after college too. And as a teacher, then really wanting to be able to embrace not just the language, but the culture, the culture aspect of it, and then realizing how critical language was my connection to my culture as well. And then seeing our younger kids now not being able to connect with the people who are important to them, that loss of relationship between a grandchild and a grandparent is really sad for me.
So in my days of, in the 1980s as a teenager, we will try to imitate being an American. We want to become Americanized. And even me, myself, I try to stay away from hanging out with all the Hmong people, and I try hard to develop an accent that's not Hmong accent. In the process, we have forgotten about our Hmongness, our Hmong identity, our culture,
And then once I started teaching and doing some trainings, I started to realize that our Hmong students really need standardization. And they need it from sources that already have some good idea of, and that are bilingual and understand that core part of what Hmong Language Foundation is, as well as being bilingual in English and Hmong, right?
The standards hopefully will help to provide some level of empowerment, some level of knowledge, some level of fluency in the language and the culture for these kids who feel belong and proud of becoming Hmong or rediscovering themselves as Hmong people.
I felt like I had to reinvent the wheel so many times, right? And like you said, there was intellectual property. Many people didn't know if they could share or they didn't want to share, or maybe they were unsure about what they had found. And they didn't feel good sharing that information, right?
When I first started teaching Hmong back about 15 years ago, I didn't have much to start with. And I had to create everything from scratch. Then the other Hmong teachers from the elementary school to the middle school to high school, even some of the kids that were in college and came back and say, hey, how do I teach Hmong language and culture? And so I feel the need that other teachers need. You know, I'm among one of the oldest teachers in the field for Hmong people. And everybody else is younger than me, of course. And so it almost feels like I need to help these, younger teachers get started with their programs. And I also need to make sure that they're doing it right.
When we realized how different all of our understandings around Hmong language, how we learned it, there was no one right way to learn it, and we wanted to honor all of that. And we didn't want to have to pick between dialects. All of it was valuable. How do we manage all of that? And how do we bring the best out of everything?
When you really look at just the big surface level, the surface, you see kind of like, oh, they're working on language standards because they don't have standards, right? But then really when you look beyond that, there's so many different levels. And with these standards in place, I feel like kind of like paying what you're doing already, even without these standards being completed yet, you're applying and reapplying some of these ideas already. And that's how your program has grown just, so fast in the last, 2-3 years, right? And that you've gotten so many students to be more proud of themselves, to stand taller, to just be prouder of their parents and their heritage. And it's just an amazing part of the work. That's kind of like not just talking about just standards, but that's what standards could do, is when you look to create standards and you look from community base, you look from the heritage language, that's what you also create is a foundation for that beyond just language work.
And you have to with the identity piece, because if I'm hearing the same story about my students, I'm like, oh my God, that was me 20 years ago, 25 years ago. They're going through the same thing.
And it's still happening.
Yes. So it's like, what can I do to make sure that our students can become leaders? Bringing in folks from the community is so important, because I'm only one voice, but if I bring in guest speakers, and sometimes I ask them to come in, I might not have funds anywhere, but a lot of people will say, yeah, I'll come in, because I want to inspire the next generation of students.
We had a very English-oriented lens of how to do things. We kept seeing Hmong language doesn't have this, it kept becoming a deficit model. And I said, when we started talking about it and exploring, we said, take it off. Now let's look at all the stuff that we do have in Hmong that they don't have in English, that we have to make sure we teach, because this is so critical. When we flip that switch to putting on our Hmong hats for doing this work, it really shifted our work, and we had to then become advocates in our district to say, hey, that works in English, but not in our language. We need to do it this way. That's been a huge learning for myself, and then for a lot of our, a lot of my colleagues that are also doing this work.
It's always a balancing game, right? You have to understand language in order to function in culture and heritage and understand more. But you do have to understand about the heritage and the culture in order to thoroughly understand the language. So you cannot have one without the other.
Because I think for myself personally, as a kid, going through the school system, you adopt those values too. So you adopt the values of, you know, oh, my teachers are smarter than my parents because they have the degrees and they can speak English and my parents don't. Oh, my, you know, like, but then once, you know, I became an adult and I realized, oh my God, how smart my parents, like how knowledgeable and wise they were. And like all the ways that they did things. Like when I went to Thailand for the first time in college and I came back, I was like, oh my God, everything my mom and dad did made so much sense to me because I had the cultural context now to say, what I thought that they were doing was weird before, now everyone in Thailand does that, right? Like, and so I think when the kids understand some of those cultural aspects of it, the cultural beliefs, the cultural understandings, and they have that appreciation, I think they really have a much deeper understanding of that language. That's kind of the hope, that this will just be the beginning steps to have something, you know, like tangible, but that it will continue to build on and get better and get richer and get more like whatever's out there.
You have to understand that building these foundations is only the beginning. The hard work comes in where we're going to need to create curriculums. We're going to need to create curriculum materials. We need to create the support system to continue to push for people to utilize these curriculums and standards.
The next step would be to support teachers, you know, with sharing all of the great examples that lots of great teachers have already done. A lot of not just teachers in formal settings, but community programs.
We're excited that the standards are going to be made public. There's the first draft, and then we need more voices. We need to know how is it working for people and how is it not working for people. Like you mentioned, right? You said, like, I want teachers to use this and tell us, oh, here are the genres that aren't present, right? Or parents or community members, educators and artists in the community saying, like, and elders in the community saying, like, oh, you're missing this one. And so what our next phase, we're going to make them public, the first draft, through our website, Hmong Language Resource Hub. Then our hope is for this year, the teams, the language, literacy, literature, and culture teams, they're going to continue to make some of those supports for teachers. They can be standards for kind of home and community and intergenerational language, literacy, and culture work that's happening not just in the schools, right? Not just in the community education settings, but in the home settings too, and in these informal places. And so we see a lot of ways that this can get picked up and used for different purposes. These are created by the community, they're owned by the community. They're not owned by any institution. They live and breathe in the ways that they're used and how people share with each other. This is how it was able to live and breathe.
I'm just so grateful of so much interest in this work, and you know, teachers are like, hey, when are we going to get access to those? We want to see them. And so we're just really, really excited about where we've come, and we still will have a lot left to go because it's just the beginning, and only time will tell where we will lead the standards work. Yeah.